Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about the best healers, or my predictions for best healers for the new patch 8.3, and specifically talking about the new raid Ny'alotha. But I want to approach this video in a different way. I want to talk about the predictions for healer meta for these top-end mythic raiding guilds, but I also want to talk about what healers are looking strong for those heroic players who are not pushing that bleeding edge content. I also will talk about some of the mythic plus healer balance as well, but I did a video previously and I did cover that, so I won't spend too much time on it. So first of all, let's look at the meta for those mythic raiding guilds. Is your Holy Paladin safe? Let's go. So first of all, if you look at Eternal Palace and if you look at the top two healers, Discipline Priest and Holy Paladin were insanely strong. There's specific reasons for that. Passive DPS. A lot of these healers that I mentioned can do a lot of healing or comparable healing to other healers, but they can passively give 10 to 20k DPS on a boss without sacrificing any healing. So you can see why Discipline Priest and Holy Paladin already has a small edge or quite a big edge over every other healer. So passive DPS was very strong. Damage reduction cooldowns like Devotion Aura for Holy Paladin or Barrier for Discipline Priest, again, extremely strong. If you look at the cooldowns and how the burst healing in Eternal Palace worked, it really favored these healers that had short healing cooldowns and they could utilize them a lot throughout the fight. So you look at Holy Paladin, you look at Holy Avenger, you look at Wings, that works really well with what Eternal Palace healing requirements needed. So you can see straight away that these healers just have everything going for them in Eternal Palace. What's happening in 8.3? They're getting nerfed. There's no big surprise here. Are the nerfs enough? They're not. They really aren't, in my prediction. I think that Holy Paladin and Discipline Priest are still going to be very dominant in Ny'alotha. If we look at the nerfs of Holy Paladin, again, Glimmer Healing has been nerfed. Glimmer of Light now has an 8 cap on it, which can be viewed as a decent nerf to their burst healing. But if you look at some of the logs, and I've been looking at some of the logs on PTR and things like that, you can still see that Holy Paladin's raw HPS is actually insane. Now, converting that raw HPS into effective healing is a different story, but you can see that the scaling that 8.3 is going to introduce, Vision of Perfection, is getting buffed. Holy Paladins are going to do just fine in the new patch. Again, like I mentioned, their scaling with secondaries is very strong. Glimmer of Light is still looking at very strong build, both for raids, raid progression, and Mythic Plus, if I were to talk about that as well. In terms of Discipline Priest nerfs, you can see that they focused on their damage output. A lot of the damage abilities like Shadow Wall Pain got nerfed, Schism no longer interacts with your essences or your trinkets. A lot of people were using Mechagon Trinket to increase their damage during Schism in a lot of the fights in Eternal Palace. That no longer will be available, or at least it won't increase the damage. And if you look at some of the buffs that they received, it is mainly aimed at 5-man or PvP content in order to offset the damage nerfs that Discipline Priest received. So overall, you could still say that Discipline is going to be an extremely strong raid healer for Ny'alotha. The meta is still looking very similar. I expect every mythic raiding guild to have at least one Holy Paladin, to have at least one Discipline Priest. That is my predictions for the new raid. Again, anything can change. I do expect further class buffs happening or nerfs happening before the mythic release. So that is my expectation, but Discipline, Holy looking extremely strong. Now, what healer is coming into this top tier? And there is no surprise at all. Resto Shaman is climbing in the new raid, because if you watched any of my videos, any of my healer videos, I said that Resto Shaman was probably the third most popular healer for high-end Mythic Eternal Palace. If you look at the class representation for hard bosses like Zakul, for hard bosses like Queen Ashara, you see that Resto Shaman is really well represented. Like I mentioned, third best healer. So what's happening in 8.3? The top two healers are getting nerfed, so the third healer is going to climb a little bit higher. So I do expect Resto Shamans to be included in a lot of these Mythic World First skills. Now the reason why, they have a lot of cooldowns. They're utility kind of healers. Spirit Link is still extremely strong. You still have an additional healing cooldown through Healing Tide. On top of that, you have a lot of utility, and I'm going to spend a little time talking about the utility. First of all, Resto Shaman can do very good DPS if they acquire Igneous Potential Azerite trait. Now, there is a big drawback. Resto Shaman has to acquire these Azerites, they have to equip them, which means they can't equip healing Azerite traits. But I feel few guilds might use Battle Resto Shaman, a shaman who has multiple Igneous Potential traits who will DPS when there is no healing needed and swap back to healing when there is a healing burst needed. This was very, very popular on the previous raids before Glimmer of Light kind of came into effect. Battle Resto Shaman was really, really strong. I do feel guilds will use a version of this, but you can just see that Resto Shaman is very versatile. They have an option of dealing damage, they have an option of speccing into more healing oriented build, and they also have an extreme amount of utility with things like Tremor Totem, Windrush Totem. Windrush Totem is being praised so much in Ny'alotha because look at the boss rooms. The boss rooms are absolutely massive. They're so big. Windrush Totem is extremely strong. Anything that's going to improve the party speed. Again, Stampeding Roar could be argued as a good option here as well, but I don't see Guardian Druids making into that top tier tanking meta for Ny'alotha because of the magic damage, and Feral Druids are not that popular. So Windrush Totem is the best alternative, and again, this is not provided by Resto Shamans, this is provided by all Shamans in general, so you can't see an option of Shamans being very strong in the new raid. And the Tremor Totem, I need to talk about that a bit more, because a lot of people have been talking about Tremor and how it can break you out of these, you know, mind control sanity effects, because the new raid, the last two bosses, the main effect is sanity. If you reach 0 sanity, you become mind controlled by Ny'alotha. And apparently there's been reports that you can break out of it with Tremor Totem on normal and heroic difficulty. I haven't been able to 100% confirm this. But if this is actually true, this seems very broken. And I don't feel this is going to make it into the mythic encounter, because I feel sanity is the main portion of those fights. And to reach 0 sanity, you really have to mess up. You really have to get hit by everything. And if Tremor Totem is going to completely alleviate this whole mechanic, I feel it's going to be too strong. So my expectation is that it's not going to be possible to break out of sanity, but we'll have to see. Blizzard has done this before, where Tremor would break out heroic mechanics, but will not break out mythic mechanics. So it's very possible. Again, even if it doesn't work on sanity, there are plenty other mechanics in the new raid where Tremor Totem could possibly be used. Resto Shaman is definitely fitting into this top healer meta, and I expect a lot of mythic raiding guilds to go with at least one disc, one Holy Paladin, and one Resto Shaman. And now we have to talk about a healer which had a lot of unknowns, and that is Mistweaver Monk. Now, I've been checking a lot of the logs for Mistweaver Monks in terms of checking Rising Mist, which has been buffed, nerfed, changed, and all of that. And I've been checking a lot of logs in terms of fist weaving. Is that going to be providing good healing? Is that going to be providing good DPS? And if you look at Rising Mist talent and the whole fist weaving build, you can see that the hot extension duration capability of Rising Mist is the good bit. It's now 4 seconds, and all of a sudden your Renewing Mist can be extended by a lot, and you can have more Renewing Mist out in the raid, jumping all about and doing good healing, because again, it's a smart kind of hot. So all of a sudden, based from the logs, I'm seeing Renewing Mist account for around 10+% of your healing, where on live servers it does around 5%. So you can see there is a substantial increase to Renewing Mist, so there is still a debate whether Upwelling is going to be better or whether Rising Mist is going to be better. But at the same time, if we look at the Rising Mist build, there is a lot of comparisons to be made between Mistweaver and Holy Paladin. They're both melee healers right now. You have to hit the boss to do healing. And this brings my point of comparisons being made between the two specs, which can be very bad for Mistweaver. Because if you think about it and you compare these two healers, Holy Paladin Glimmer of Light build and Mistweaver Rising Mist build, they're quite similar in what they do. But Holy Paladin has arguably substantially better raid cooldowns. Damage reduction cooldown like Devotional is extremely strong when you compare it to Revival. A lot of people in healing community meme about Revival in terms of what it does, but I feel it can be strong if it's used to dispel certain mechanics in a raid, and we'll have to see if that's going to be possible. But the general consensus, Diva Aura is a lot better than Revival. And on top of that, Holy Paladins have no mana issues, but Mistweavers can run into mana issues, but Essences can help with that. But if we compare the two healers, because they're very similar, Holy Paladin is going to win out. So all of a sudden you might have the scenario where you want to bring a Mistweaver to this mythic raiding content, and people might tell you, why don't you just play Holy Paladin? They do what Mistweavers do, but better. And I feel Mistweavers need to have some sort of niche coming out. At the very least, I feel Blizzard needs to buff Mistweaver damage to make them, or at least create a new niche for them. Maybe make Glory of the Dawn Azeroth trait interact with Rising Mist in some shape or form, because it does not do that on live servers right now. Mistweavers need to create their own niche, because they're kind of trailing behind Holy Paladins in terms of what both of these specs do. And I feel if this is going to go live, people will just pick Holy Paladin instead. So now we talk about the pure throughput healers, and that's how I refer to Resto Druid, Holy Priest, and Mistweaver Monk using Upwelling build. These are the healers that cannot provide passive DPS. They have to choose whether they want to DPS or heal at a given time. They don't provide damage reduction cooldowns. They can just do an awesome amount of healing. And a lot of people really like this playstyle. They don't like the whole DPS healer meta emerging, but at high-end content, why would you not pick a Holy Paladin who can do as much healing as a Resto Druid, and on top of that provide like 15, 20k DPS? So you can see why these throughput healers have a direct disadvantage when compared to the healers that I talked at the start of the video. And I'm kind of scared about Resto Druid, Mistweaver with Upwelling build position in the raid. If a raid all of a sudden decides, hey, we have a Resto Shaman, we have a Holy Paladin, we have a Disciplined Priest, this fight is a rot fight, or there's a lot of healing needed in this fight, we need to bring in, or maybe we're thinking about bringing in a pure throughput healer for this specific fight. Who do we bring? And I feel Holy Priest can actually be one of the best candidates, because look at the pure healing that Holy Priest can output. In Eternal Palace, Holy Priests are one of the best healers behind Holy Paladin with Glimmer of Light, which is getting a bit of a nerf. So Holy Priest, in terms of pure numbers, is actually insane. They can't provide passive DPS, they don't have damage reduction cooldowns, but if you need just pure raid healing, Holy Priest is really strong. And on top of that, if you look at Resto Druid is getting a slight nerf. Now, Resto Druid is getting a bigger nerf that's going to affect him in Mythic Plus, like a Mastery nerf, but that's also going to impact them in raid situations. While it's not that big, it's still a nerf to a class that is not that popular for Mythic and raiding. And I kind of fear about the future of Resto Druid, and I'm kind of unsure about the future of Mistweavers. So to summarize the video, I had to spend all this time to tell you that the meta is basically the same. Resto Shaman is climbing up, Mistweaver is in a relatively unknown position. They need to carve a better niche for Mistweaver, otherwise they're going to trail behind Holy Paladin. And if you look at heroic raids or healers that are very strong for heroic raids, I feel Holy Priest is going to be quite dominant for guilds that don't look at healer DPS, for guilds that don't look at damage reduction cooldowns. And if you're a type of healer that doesn't enjoy healer DPS or wants to look really good on healing meters, I feel Holy Priest is going to be quite dominant in this heroic normal content, and a lot of the Eternal Palace numbers can back that up. And again, in terms of Mythic Plus, the healer balance, I did a video about this previously, but Resto Druid is still looking very strong. They are getting nerfs in terms of Mastery, nerf that's going to affect them more in Firemans than raids, but it's still going to affect them in raids, and they are getting Sunfire trait nerf as well in terms of reducing the overall damage in the Mythic Plus dungeon, but the utility is still looking strong. I did a Mythic Plus video, and there is a lot of utility for stealth classes. Resto Druid is a very good pick for 8.3 Mythic Plus. Holy Paladin is looking to be like the second healer that might climb, might create some surprises, we'll have to see, but Holy Paladin is definitely looking pretty strong. And if you're doing plus 10s, plus 15s, and you're worried about healer balance in Mythic Plus, don't be. Any healer is going to be capable of doing that plus 10 or plus 15. Believe me, you don't have to have a Resto Druid or Holy Paladin to get those keys done. And I don't want people to be super negative about, oh hey, I play a Resto Shaman, I can't do Mythic Plus. That's not true, and you can have a lot of fun doing that. For the summary of the whole video, you have to make sacrifices if you want to play the best healer in Mythic Plus or the best healer in raids. For example, Holy Paladin or Disciplined Priest are looking extremely strong in raid encounters, but Disciplined Priest might not be that strong in Mythic Plus. Or Resto Druid is looking really strong in Mythic Plus, but it's not looking that optimal for raid situations. So if I were to talk about a healer that's looking to be quite good in all content, Holy Paladin is probably a good choice for 8.3. One of the top raid healers, probably the second best Mythic Plus healer. Again, these are all predictions, anything can change. I do expect that before the Mythic raid is released, that Blizzard is going to buff Mistweavers. That's my prediction. That's another prediction that I have, and I want to mention this in the video. I feel Mistweavers are going to get a buff before Mythic is released in order to help them with their utility, maybe to separate them from Holy Paladins. But we'll have to see. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know how you feel about my predictions. Let me know which healer you're going to main in 8.3. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.